call a special call meeting to order this morning. Monday, the 11th of April, 2005. Councilman Laws is present, Vice Mayor Bell is present, Councilwoman Garner is present. And good morning to all of you. The discussion this morning is on the new City Hall site, a resolution of the City of Homestead, Florida, providing for the approval of the purchase and sale agreement between Homestead Shopping Center Corp. and the City of Homestead, Florida, authorizing the City Manager to execute the purchase and sale agreement, authorizing the City Manager and the City Attorney to take all necessary action to implement the purchase and sale agreement, and to finalize and sign all documents necessary to complete the transaction, providing for an effective date. Mr. Manager.
Mr. Mayor and Council, this is the first purchase from the property that we're interested in, of a couple of purchases that we'll end up making. This reflects Unit 100 and 200 of the property on Washington Avenue. That's the Borges grocery store, as it's known as, and also the dollar store building. Those two together compose approximately 23,000 square feet of building space, and it represents 48% of the property as well. The couple of things, well, that would leave 300 and 400, and that's the medical center building, and a small parking area in the back left to be purchased on that property. We have had the environmental done, phase one. There was indication there may have been a previous dry cleaning there, so we are issuing a phase two. So we've extended the closing date till the end of the month so that we can complete the phase two, if you want to add to that.
Mr. Mayor, councilpersons, phase one environmental assessment was completed by Langen Engineering. Their conclusions were that there was a dry cleaning establishment that had been in one of the units during the 70s and 80s, and as a matter of course, they recommend doing a limited phase two, which will involve some soil borings to see if there's any contamination in the soil. The contract as drafted, and it was previously circulated for a previously scheduled special call, has a closing date of April 29th, the end of this month, and only has a 15-day due diligence period. The sellers wanted to move this closing along quickly. I had conversations with the seller's attorney late Friday. She'd been out of the country. I indicated to her we had the phase one. We needed a longer due diligence period. She is going to recommend to her client, thinks that he would be amenable to extending the due diligence period to the end of April, April 29th, which is the date that Langen has advised city staff that they will be able to complete the phase two, the limited phase two environmental assessment. Assuming there's nothing found that would lead us to want to not purchase the property, we would then close on May 2nd, which is the following Monday. So my recommendation would be to approve the contract as drafted with the change of the due diligence period to end on April 29th and the closing date to be May 2nd. And assuming that it was approved with that recommendation, we would make those changes and have the seller initial those changes because they've already signed the contract.
Mr. Losner?
I'll move it subject to the date adjustments discussed by the attorneys.
Movement, Mr. Losner, with the adjustments, the date adjustment. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Garner. Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor, we do have representatives from the leaseholder, Borges grocery store, that are here today. I don't know if they want to take this opportunity to address the council.
May I have a question?
Vice Mayor?
I have a question about the environmental study on this. I mean, how important is it because we're really going to cement over the whole area anyway? There's going to be no possibility of any leakage or anything.
I just want to make sure there's no plutonium or anything down there. Once the environmental first phase says you should do a second, we just want to follow through with that. But we don't. You're absolutely right. That'll be just like it is, paved over, built over. So there's very little.
We're not putting a tot lot there or anything. Where it's okay.
Thank you.
Nor council offices are.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, council members. Good morning, Mr. Manager, City Attorney. My name is Mauro Santos, M-A-U-R-O-S-A-N-T-O-S. I usually spell it up front because that's the question that's coming up. I represent a gentleman by the name of Edson Borges, B-O-R-G-S. That's the gentleman that's sitting right there. He's asked me to speak on his behalf because his English is so-so, but he understands what's going on in the meeting. And he happens to be the owner and for the last 5.5 years operated Borges Supermarket, which is the tenant of one of the premises that you're contemplating the purchase of today. We plea of this council that you will hold off the vote on this contract so that you will have an opportunity to study the social and economic impact to the pedestrian agro-labor community surrounding that property in the purchase and the contemplated move of City Hall to that area. We also hope and plead to your spirit of fair play that you will take into consideration the impact of the local businessmen that have made substantial investments in the area, and to give them an opportunity to present to you the consequences that will impact them negatively in this move, we believe. In displacing Borges Supermarket and the neighboring walk-in clinic, we believe, or we propose, that you will be depriving this pedestrian community of essential and unique services that make up the core, what is the community, that is the heart, or the community center of that Hispanic agricultural labor community. Borges Supermarket serves a unique function in that community. The first time I went to my client's business, I was surprised in noticing, well, there's so few cars in the parking lot. There's a large parking lot, so few cars on it. And you go inside the business, and it's packed with customers. The reason being that these folks walk to Borges to make their purchases. And unlike any other supermarket in your area, Borges delivers the groceries. You see, little abuela walks to the market with her little shopping list and puts it together. She can't carry back those 3 bags of luggage, of groceries. They drive them. They have vehicles that take these folks back home or take their groceries back home for them. No one else does that. They also serve a unique purpose because they are the only ones that have a tortilla making machine. And it sounds silly, but it's very, very important. It is the staple of the Mexican diet and Central American diet is the fresh tortillas. No one else makes it. And it brings a whole lot of folks over there on a daily basis because they want it fresh, not sitting on the counter for weeks on end. Also, Borges hires a lot of members from the community. They currently have 34 employees from this very community, Latin-speaking employees, Spanish-speaking employees. As an example of why I think you should hold off the vote, I'm not prepared today to speak as to the impact of the next door clinic. I can only suppose. We haven't had the time to be able to sit down with them and see what the impact is. But one sees, just from being next door, that there's a substantial walk-in traffic serving that community. This issue of time comes to the heart of the second issue, which is one of how you're dealing how to deal in fair play with your local businessmen. We had received, or Mr. Borges received, no official notice of this from the city as to its intent to buy the premises where his business has been operating for 5 years. He has another 5 years left on his lease. He made a very substantial investment when he came in, which is he was hoping to recoup in the second portion of his 10-year lease. Mr. Borges has been a member of this community since 1992 when he first purchased a laundromat. He has owned Borges since September of 1997. I understand that you're contemplating the purchase of the business and not necessarily moving City Hall there at this juncture. But reality is, economically, this is a fait accompli. If you invest the substantial sums you're contemplating in purchasing that property, let's be real, you're going to proceed. This is the battleground. This is a decision point before you out of pocket the substantial sum. This is the moment to take the time to contemplate how this will be perceived by Hispanic investors. How you treat your Hispanic entrepreneurs matters. I worked in downtown Miami for the last 20 years as an attorney, and I can speak with conviction to you that there's a substantial influx of Central American investment into South Florida right now, primarily out of Mexico. How you handle and treat your community members, your residents, and your businesses matters as to what kind of investments you're going to get down here in Homestead. I know you know this, and I don't need to lecture. I trust that we all, and you, want to do what is best for this community. And I know that the idea is to develop the west side of Homestead and improve upon it by placing City Hall there and showing trust. But you have to be careful that the medicine is not worse than the disease. In removing the one grocery that caters to that community, in removing the one clinic that caters to that community, you may be creating a problem rather than resolving a problem. So I would suggest that there might be other alternatives that will serve you better. And as the doctors say, first do no harm. So I would request that you give us an opportunity to assist you in working together and do a study to realize what impact this move will have on that community, and I appreciate your time today.
Thank you. Any other comments? Any other comments?
I'll make a comment.
I'd love to, but I'm not.
Mr. Manager.
Mayor, we met Mr. Borges and his attorney on Friday to talk over some of the same issues. We did indicate that before we break ground over there will be at least a year for by the time we design, do all the things we need to do, which leaves a year to relocate, appropriately relocate. We know the area that Mr. Borges feels that his clientele's in and where he would be able to relocate and still serve that clientele. I suggest maybe that, and I worked with Mitch Bernstein, our attorney, to discuss this issue and look at ways to negotiate the least harmful impact on Borges that we can come up with and still make this thing move forward. So I just wanted to indicate that. Mitch, did you have anything else to add?
Just a couple of comments. Okay. Good morning, Mayor, council members. Just to follow up on some of Mr. Santos's comments, the council, Mayor, needs to understand that we are acquiring this, if this resolution is adopted today, subject to this lease. Borges Supermarket does have an existing lease. They have a period of at least 5 years until 2010 to occupy that property. So there's really a couple of reasons why we need to sit down with these folks. One is because that leasehold has a certain value. And we've had people take a look at what the value of that leasehold is. Secondly is we are displacing them, and as the elected officials and as the city, we do have an obligation to help them along and to possibly relocate them if we move forward. We're hoping to sit down with them and through incentives such as rent abatements and relocation assistance that we're going to be able to come to a negotiated resolution. But just so everyone understands that they do have a property interest and they could say, we're not leaving, and that could result in an eminent domain lawsuit just to obtain title to this leasehold interest. We're hoping it doesn't get there, but that is a possibility if you approve this resolution this morning.
And I just wanted to comment, Mr. Santos, we've had multiple public hearings on this issue. I mean, just multiple public hearings. the business community came forth, and just everyone put their comments on the record. We've had meetings downtown, meetings in this chamber, and this has gone on for at least 2 or 3 years in terms of locating City Hall at that site. So I don't know where Mr. Borges was aware of it, but no one came forward from the supermarket about the objection to the relocation. So I think we've exhausted public hearings. We really had a lot of input from the community, and the community was pretty much split on that site. On
other grounds.
Yeah. On other grounds, they had other issues. So, but I think publicly, I mean, we have exhausted a discussion on this issue, and finally we've come to a decision that this is the place we're going to put the new City Hall. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I wanted to apologize. I forgot to thank Mr. Ivey and Mr. Bernstein for taking the time to meet with us and go over some of these concerns and issues. They were very kind to us in that respect. And if I, by any way, inferred that the city didn't do what it needed to do in its public hearing process, I certainly didn't mean to do so. But I think this exemplifies the problem that we're dealing with here. I have gone down the street, my client has gone down the street in Washington, and nobody knows about this. No one. So if these public hearings did take place, then we do have a concern in how we are relaying and addressing this very community that has been historically essential to Homestead. So I do not in any way suggest that something wrong was done, but I'm suggesting that something more must be done. Thank you.
Mr. Shahada, then the Vice Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, council members, I'd just like to add for the record that the selection of the site was done based on extensive studies done by our architects, look at multiple sites around the city, consider many factors, and that was the best location for, taking all these things into consideration.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you. One of the things we have to take in consideration, too, is the greater good of the city, including our Mexican residents. What we're bringing there is going to be far, far, far better than what they have now, and it's going to be a lot of accessibility by foot. Kind of takes away that particular argument, and I understand the impact that this is going to be on one particular owner, and that's Mr. Borges. We have walk-in clinics all over the city as well. There are so many areas here that this is going to improve the downtown area. It's not going to make it worse or negate what's been done already. This is actually going to be a greater improvement for greater good for the entire community, including the Mexican community. So I understand your personal interest here. I understand your client's interest. That's what it's all about, and there's an interest here. But as far as the community impact, this is actually a greater good for the community. And so, I understand your concerns, but I don't really find the concerns really are very valid, especially in light of the fact that for the last year and a half, we've been discussing this openly. We've had open meetings. We've had open discussions. It's been noticed properly in the newspaper. I can't fathom why your client hasn't been here, quite frankly. And I'm not trying to diminish, what is happening here. There is a lease, but we still have to go ahead and go forth with what we think is the better thing for the community, the greater good for the entire community, including the Mexican-American community, including every community that's impacted by that surrounding area. And this would be the best long-term use. And I hope this council is a good council, and I think that they are thinking long-term. And this is a plan that I'm going to tell you is going to go forward. But I really do appreciate your input, and I understand it, but I really feel like it's going to go forward. We've debated this, and it's time to go ahead and put a close to it and go ahead and purchase the property. Thank you.
Any other comments? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mrs. Bell?
Yes.
Ms. Garner?
Yes.
Mr. Hodge? Yes. Mr. Losner?
Yes.
Mr. Porter is absent. Mrs. Waldman is absent. Mayor Warren?
Yes. Councilman Hodges here.
Mr. Hodge? Is that?
Yes.
Yeah. Got him.
Well, thank you all very much. That concludes the special call meeting this morning. Thank you.
a new attorney because the one he's got now made a bad first impression.
This is going to find the clerk.